Karen thought calling the cops over my garden was a power move. She had no idea it would end her reign. It started as an unusually warm Saturday morning in Oakwood Pines, the kind of gated suburban community where every blade of grass was expected to be cut at a perfect 2 inches. I had been living there for 3 years, and in all that time, I kept my head down, paid my HOA dues, and minded my own business. Gardening was my escape from the stress of my job. Rows of roses, tulips, and fresh vegetables lined my backyard like a personal Eden. That day, I was kneeling beside my prize hydrangeas, carefully trimming away dead leaves. The sun was soft, the air smelled of earth, and for once, I was at peace. But peace doesn't last long when Karen lives 3 houses down. Karen wasn't just an HOA board member. She was the HOA board, the unofficial queen of the neighborhood. She had a clipboard more than she had a conscience. The kind of person who saw community rules as divine commandments and herself as a chosen enforcer. I didn't even hear her approach. The first sign of trouble was a shadow falling over me like a dark omen. "Excuse me," she snapped. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" I looked up, confused. "I'm gardening." She adjusted her oversized sunglasses and shook her head like I'd just confessed to a felony. "You're altering the property landscaping without HOA approval. That destruction of community property." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "This is my yard." Her lips tightened. The soil, the plants, the aesthetic, all fall under HOA jurisdiction. And what you're doing is against policy. You can't just dig up and replace plants without the board's written consent. Now, I'd heard rumors about her petty power trips, fining someone for leaving a garden hose out overnight, threatening another for putting up Christmas lights in November. But this was absurd. "I'm not replacing anything," I said, holding up my pruning shears. "I'm just maintaining my plants." "That's not what it looks like to me." She pulled out her phone. "You know what? I'm calling the police." I stared at her, dumbfounded, over flowers. She didn't respond, already dialing. I could hear her fake panic through the thin air. "Yes, officer, we have a resident here destroying HOA property. Yes, in broad daylight." Within 10 minutes, a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, clearly puzzled to be here. One of them, a tall man with a calm demeanor, asked, "What seems to be the problem?" Karen rushed over like she was reporting a violent crime. "This man is destroying the neighborhood's landscape. This is criminal damage." The officer looked at my shears, my flowers, then at me. "Sir, is this your yard?" "Yes, I'm just trimming plants." "That's it." The officer turned back to Karen. This is not a police matter. Landscaping disputes fall under civil matters, not criminal law." Karen's face twisted. "So you're just going to let him ruin the property value for all of us?" The officer gave me an apologetic look before leaving. Karen, however, lingered long enough to hiss, "Enjoy your little hobby while you can. The board will hear about this." As she strutted away, clipboard in hand, something in me snapped. That was the moment I decided she had declared war, and I was going to win. I didn't just wake up the next morning and run to Home Depot for a bag of cement. No. This had to be calculated. This had to be an act of pettiness so artfully crafted that it would live in HOA legend long after I was gone. First step, blueprints. I'm no sculptor, but I knew a guy who knew a guy. My friend Mike worked in construction and once helped build props for a local theater. Over a couple of beers, I told him what I wanted. He nearly spit out his drink. "You want a 12-foot statue of your HOA president in your yard." "Not just a statue," I said, leaning in. "It's going to be exactly her. Same clothes, same sunglasses, same clipboard, down to the damn pearl earrings." Mike laughed so hard he choked. "You're insane." "I love it." The next week, we got to work. I hired a 3D modeler online, sent them reference photos, thank you, Facebook, and told them to make it as lifelike as possible. The artist didn't ask questions, probably assumed it was for a quirky art project. Oh, if only they knew. While the digital model was being built, I started gathering materials. I bought steel rebar, concrete, weatherproof paint, and even faux hair for the wig. I also ordered the pièce de résistance, a small Bluetooth speaker that I could hide inside the statue. It would play a loop of Karen's own voice, taken from HOA meeting recordings, saying things like, "That's against the rules. I'll be issuing a violation notice. We have standards here in Willow Creek." Oh, this was going to be good. Construction began in my garage under strict secrecy. I told my wife it might take a month. She just shook her head, muttering something about man-child revenge fantasies. My daughter, however, was thrilled. "Are you going to give her a cape?" she asked. I almost considered it. The hardest part was keeping Karen from finding out. She was nosy by nature, the kind of person who would walk up your driveway under the guise of delivering a notice just to peek inside your garage. So I kept the door shut at all times, and whenever I worked on the statue outside, I draped it with a tarp. One Friday afternoon, I was mixing cement when I heard footsteps. I looked up to see Karen, standing at the edge of my property, her eyes squinting like she was trying to pierce through the tarp with sheer willpower. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Just replacing what you took away," I said with a straight face. Her lips curled into a smirk. "Good. It's about time you made improvements. Maybe you'll finally meet HOA landscaping guidelines." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. 3 weeks later, the statue was ready. 12 feet of cold, glorious revenge. She stood with one hand on her hip, the other clutching the clipboard, a permanent expression of judgment carved into her concrete face. The sunglasses glinted in the sun, and the pearl earrings caught the light like miniature beacons of pettiness. Installing it was the most satisfying moment of my life. We hauled it out into the yard with a rented crane, lowering it onto a concrete base right where the oak tree had stood. My neighbors gathered, whispering and chuckling, phones out to record. "Is that Karen?" Mrs. Johnson from across the street asked, barely hiding her laughter. "Oh, it's Karen all right," I said. By sunset, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Karen hadn't come outside yet. She'd been out running errands. But the moment her silver Lexus pulled into the driveway, the crowd fell silent. She stepped out, grocery bag in hand, and froze. Her face went pale. "What is that?" "That," I said loud enough for everyone to hear, "is my new landscaping feature. Thought I'd honor the woman who took away my beautiful tree." The look on her face was pure gold, somewhere between shock, rage, and the dawning realization that she couldn't just make it disappear. She stormed over, heels clicking like gunshots. "You can't put this here. It's against HOA regulations." I smiled sweetly. "Actually, Karen, according to Section 4, subsection C of the HOA bylaws, statues and decorative art installations under 15 feet in height are permissible as long as they are maintained in good condition. This beauty is 12 feet, well within limits. And as you can see, I gestured at the flawless paintwork. It's in excellent condition." Her jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might shatter. "This is harassment. This," I said, "is art." That night, I switched on the Bluetooth speaker. At random intervals, the statue's hidden speaker would blare her own voice across the yard. "We have standards here in Willow Creek," followed by "That's a violation notice." By the next morning, the video of her reaction had gone viral in our neighborhood Facebook group. Comments poured in. I can't stop laughing. "Best HOA revenge ever. Karen's reign is over." But I knew her. She wasn't going to take this lying down. The real battle had just begun. Karen didn't waste a single day. By sunrise the next morning, she was already plotting her counterattack. I knew it because I caught her pacing up and down the sidewalk with her clipboard like a military general planning an invasion. Her first move? The violation notice blitz. By noon, I'd received 6 separate violation letters in my mailbox. Apparently, my mailbox was non-compliant, my grass was too long, my trash bin too visible, my driveway too stained, my Christmas lights, still in the garage, improperly stored, and my personal favorite, my wind chimes were too loud. She was trying to drown me in paperwork, hoping I'd break under the pressure. But here's the thing, I'd spent years paying attention at HOA meetings. I knew the rules better than she did. I responded to every single violation with meticulously documented evidence, complete with timestamps, photographs, and references to the exact bylaws. Each letter I sent back was polite, professional, and absolutely devastating to her case. Strike one. Her second move? The emergency HOA meeting. Karen called a special session at the clubhouse, dragging half the neighborhood out on a Tuesday night. She stood at the podium like a politician, pointing at blown-up photographs of my statue. "This is a clear and deliberate act of harassment," she said, her voice shaking. "It creates a hostile environment and undermines the aesthetic integrity of Willow Creek." I sat in the back, arms crossed, waiting my turn. When the floor opened for comments, I stood up. "Actually," I said, "this is a commemorative statue honoring a long-standing member of our HOA. And per Section 4, subsection C, as I've mentioned before, it's within the legal height and in excellent condition. Removing it would require a 2/3 vote from the community." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Karen's eyes narrowed. She knew I had her cornered. No one in the neighborhood cared enough to vote on something this petty, especially when half of them secretly hated her. Strike two. Her third move? The anonymous complaint. A week later, I got a notice from the county zoning office saying they received an anonymous report that my statue was built without proper structural permits. I knew exactly who had filed it. The inspector came out, clipboard in hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He walked around the statue, tapping it with a knuckle. "Looks stable," he said. "Got a permit?" "Right here," I said, handing him the signed approval from when I poured the concrete base. Mike had made sure we followed every single local regulation to the letter. The inspector gave me a small smirk. "Seems like someone's wasting my time." He left without another word. Strike three. By now, the statue had taken on a life of its own. People from outside the neighborhood were driving by just to see it. A local news crew even showed up, running a short segment titled, "Petty War in Willow Creek. Man erects statue of HOA president." Karen was losing control. Her once-feared reign over the HOA was crumbling as neighbors began to openly mock her. I overheard kids riding their bikes past the house chanting, "We have standards," in unison. That's when she went nuclear. She filed a personal harassment lawsuit against me. A full-on legal case, claiming emotional distress, public humiliation, and damage to her reputation. I was served the papers on a Wednesday morning. I won't lie, it rattled me. Court was no joke. But I also knew something Karen didn't. Lawsuits are expensive, and truth is a defense against defamation. Plus, I had something she didn't. Video evidence of her ordering the tree's removal without my consent, which violated both HOA rules and state property laws. When my lawyer and I sat down for the first hearing, I slid that footage across the table to her attorney. It showed Karen, in broad daylight, instructing the crew to cut down my tree while I was out of town. No permit, no vote, no notice. Her lawyer's face went pale. The judge dismissed her harassment claim before it even hit trial. And in the hallway afterward, I overheard him telling her she should cut her losses before she ends up paying his legal fees. From that day forward, Karen's war wasn't just lost. It was humiliatingly over. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because if she thought the statue was the end of my revenge, she was about to learn it was only the beginning. After the lawsuit collapsed, Karen tried to vanish into the background. No more morning patrols with her clipboard. No more passive-aggressive reminder letters slipped under my door. No more smug smirk from across the street. She was quiet, but I knew she wasn't at peace. She couldn't be. Every day, every time she stepped outside her house, she had to see it, her own 12-foot concrete clone, frozen mid-scold, towering over the neighborhood like a monument to her own pettiness. But I wanted this to be forever. Not just a statue that she could maybe outlast, but a legacy. Something that would follow her no matter where she went. Something that would keep her name and her humiliation alive long after either of us moved away. The opportunity came when a local charity group reached out. They were hosting a citywide art walk and wanted to feature unusual and controversial pieces in public spaces. The organizer had seen a photo of my statue on Facebook and thought it was satirical genius. That's when it hit me. I could take this beyond Willow Creek. I told them I'd be happy to donate the statue under one condition. It had to be labeled Karen of Willow Creek guardian of the rules. The organizer laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. He agreed instantly. But before I gave it away, I had one last move to make. I hired a professional photographer to take official portrait shots of the statue, close-ups of the sunglasses, the perfectly painted pearl earrings, the poised hand clutching the clipboard. Then I had them printed on 500 glossy postcards with a caption, "Greetings from Willow Creek, where standards stand tall." The day before the statue was moved, I hand-delivered a postcard to every single mailbox in the neighborhood, including Karen's. On moving day, a flatbed truck rolled up. Neighbors gathered on their lawns, phones ready. Karen peeked from behind her curtains, her face pale as a crew carefully hoisted her concrete twin onto the truck. I caught her watching and gave her a little wave. "Don't worry, Karen," I called out. "Your legacy is going to live on." She slammed the curtains shut. The statue was relocated to a busy downtown park as part of the art walk. Within a week, it became a local sensation. People took selfies with it, tagged it on Instagram, and even made TikToks pretending to get violations from the giant concrete Karen. The city council voted to make it a permanent installation because, as one council member put it, it's become a beloved piece of community satire. And that was a death blow, because now, every time Karen went anywhere in town, there was a chance she'd run into herself. Parents brought their kids to see it. Teenagers used it as a meeting spot. It became part of the city's identity. The final nail in her coffin came 6 months later. The local paper ran a feature article on the legend of Karen of Willow Creek. It included interviews with neighbors, none flattering, and even an old photo of her from an HOA meeting, holding the exact same clipboard the statue was modeled after. From that day forward, she couldn't hide. Grocery store clerks, restaurant waiters, bank tellers, they all recognized her, not as Karen, HOA president, but as Karen, the statue lady. She resigned from the HOA within the year. I heard she tried to sell her house, but word got around and every potential buyer knew exactly who she was. As for me, I planted a new tree in my yard where the statue once stood. A bigger one with roots that would last for generations. And every time I sat under it with a cold beer, I thought about how Karen cut down my tree without permission and ended up with something far worse than a stump in return. Because stumps disappear over time. Statues are forever.